Hi, I'm Joe Saunders with Miniature Landscape Hobbies, and in this episode, we're going to look at how to enhance the visual interest of your models with chipping and rust effects. A model, by its very nature, is a representation of something that is supposed to be in the real world, but it's not the same as what it represents. The fact that it is proportionally smaller means our brains see the representation of, say, a tank or other object differently, and that's just a fact. Light reflects differently off a large surface than a small one. We of course use highlighting, shading, and color modulation to correct for this, and fooling your brain that something that is small is the equivalent of a larger, real-world item is at the foundation of the art of working in miniature. But the interplay of light and dark is only the tip of the iceberg. Wear and tear and the effects of ambient things like weather also come into effect. To compensate for this, the model painter has techniques like weathering, rusting, and chipping to help out. I've covered weathering a couple times, but I've yet to take a closer look at chipping and rusting. The first thing to remember with chipping is that if you're working in 15mm or 1/100 scale, such as for Flames of War, if you chip an item to the same extent it would be chipped in the real world, it'll lose its definition. Instead, you have to suggest the chips and some of the rust by exaggerating them slightly, but keeping the quantity to a useful minimum. A large dramatic chip will work far better than a whole bunch of them. The technique for chipping is actually deceptively simple. First, you need to complete the model to the point where it's ready to be chipped. That is, putting down the base colors and the highlights. Once that's done, then all you need to do is go back to the midtone and mix up a very light version of it, usually simply by adding white. Then, taking a medium-sized brush or medium-small brush, go in and draw dots and scratches all over the model where you would expect to find wear and tear. If the subject you're working with is a very light color, such as this white fuel tank, then you could always go the opposite, and you could begin your chipping by using a slightly darker color. In this case, I'm using Vallejo Dark Sand. After the light chipping has dried, all you need to do now is take a really fine brush and get a darker color, sometimes a rust red or a black or dark gray, and go in and put smaller chips in the middle of the larger patches. You can make them large, small, or even a series of tiny dots. It's up to you. This completes the process for painting the chips. Now all you need to do, if you want, is rust them. There are lots of different products for rust tones. I prefer the enamel-based ones, although there are some acrylic ones. Generally, what I like to do is get a variety of different colors, although if you're looking for one that has lots of different applications, you can't go wrong with AK Interactive's enamel streaking rust. It's a good basic version. If you become more fond of this technique, you can get lots of different kinds. Just remember that if you're going to use an enamel product, you should always put down a couple coats of a varnish first, just to protect your acrylics, because sometimes enamels will damage previous acrylic layers. Now all you do is take out the enamel, usually straight out of the bottle, and dot it on in different levels of thickness and size right over top of the chips you previously painted. Leave this to dry, partially, maybe for 5 minutes. Then go back and get some enamel thinner. You can use the odorless variety. And with a brush, wet it down with the thinner, dry it till it's just barely damp, and then go back and blend the enamels into the surface. You can also draw downwards across the enamels to create streaks in the direction of gravity. And that's really all there is to the chipping and rusting method. Now all you need to do is finish off any details you have left on the model, base it, and maybe give it another coat of varnish, and it's ready for the games table. I think you'll agree that a properly chipped and rusted model really goes a long way to establishing interest. It creates something that the eye will linger on, and helps establish that the model belongs in a time and place, and it elevates your work from a simple game piece to a real work of art. Best of all, the techniques are really quite simple to do and can be done fairly fast. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. Miniature Landscape Hobbies is supported entirely by its viewers. Please consider supporting me by checking out my Patreon page, or head over to my Etsy store where you can purchase many of the products I feature in my videos. The link is in the description. Please stay tuned for new content twice weekly on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Miniature Landscape Hobbies is your source for model building, miniature painting, and diorama content. If you've not yet subscribed, make sure you do, and press the bell button to receive immediate notification so you do not miss out. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember to keep building life in miniature.